All right. I think we're live on radio now. No, I'm kidding. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Justin over at Phoenix Counseling. This is the first of our interviews with Miguel Benitez. Good buddy of mine. He was, I think he's got a very rare gift. I went to college 3 times because I really like the extended approach. And he is the only person out of like the 12 times I had to take humanities that actually made it interesting and very engaging. The man's got a gift. To be honest, I thought he always made up words like modernity. I don't know where the endings of some of these words came from, but the man is a genius, and he's got an honest gift of teaching and humanities and really not letting human history fall off to the wayside. And I've always been really appreciative of that. And so, Miguel, can you just introduce yourself, let everybody know where you're at, and yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me, Justin. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation. But yeah, so I am a professor, or I guess instructor is the official title, instructor of humanities at the State College of Florida. And I've been teaching at different institutions, part-time as an adjunct for the last 7 years or so. But this past summer, I was hired full-time at the State College of Florida. And so my family and I moved from the Orlando area over to the west side of Florida now.
Very cool. And very deserving of getting that full-time job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Very thankful. So we were chatting before we went live. That'll be on the editors. That'll be the director's cut material. And I thought you brought up a really interesting fact, about having some PTSD about online teaching and a phase of life you had really not too long ago, and now being back into that caused a reemergence of feelings that caught you off guard. And
sure.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it was probably the biggest part that caught me off guard about this. So, we were, I believe, on week 11 of the semester. So semester is going to run 15 weeks and then exam week. So 16 total weeks. We were on week 11. And literally it was like one day, hey, this thing might get bad in the US. Next day, hey, students aren't coming in next week. So it was that sudden for us. And I mentioned I had been teaching at various institutions for the last several years. Well, as part of that, because, and especially in the humanities, but anybody who's looking to be a college or university professor knows that the job market's really tough. And so I didn't ever see myself as kind of the 5-day-a-week high school teacher. I did do some teaching for high school, but always in a different kind of mode or a different kind of structure. And so basically I was, for the past 3 years, piecing my work together. And a lot of that involved teaching live online classes. And so, any given semester I had anywhere from 10 to 15 courses that I was teaching in one semester. And anyone who's kind of familiar with that knows that's just an insane amount of teaching to do. And so what initially started off with good intentions of I'll be home more, I can spend more time with the family. What we realized is for us and just kind of our family structure, what it did was home and work just kind of bled together, and there was never a hard cut, right? And so what was really interesting to me is now that I've not been teaching online, now that I'm working at an institution, I have an office, ever since I started teaching in the fall, we've kind of made the commitment that I'm not working at home. And that's been wonderful for our family. And now here we are, week 11 of the spring semester, and it's like, boom, you're not allowed to come into the office anymore. And so all of a sudden, and that was the biggest surprise to me, that you're going to face some challenges when you're going to be stuck at home for a long time. Even me as an introvert, as a homebody, I know that when I'm not allowed to go anywhere, like it's problematic for me. But the biggest surprise was how the feelings of being overwhelmed and the feelings of being concerned, the feelings of struggling and not being able to do my job well from the last 3 years of my life all immediately rushed back to me, despite the fact that it's not the same workload, that it's still manageable, but it just felt too familiar to me. And I really struggled with that. I wouldn't say I'm not struggling with it now, but those first couple weeks of social distancing and quarantine, I think were especially challenging because I did not anticipate having to deal with that.
I think that's super. First off, thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah.
Like we shared, I guess we'll call it off air. You know, for me, you know, I had to come clean to be honest with my wife. Dude, I severely underestimated what this was going to do to me, you know, mentally. I thought this would be a month-long vacation and then a time to actually organize our new house with the 4,000 boxes that were in it. But, man, it just really snuck up on me, and it was almost debilitating at times. And I thought another point you just brought up was interesting was, you know, you had done a really good job, sounds like, of separating the work and home life.
Yes.
And that was kind of new because you had that season of 3 years where things were. What was that like for you and the family, you and your wife, you know, working through where now literally the next day, look, honey, we're going back to what we used to, and I don't know if that was a trying time behind the scenes for y'all or not. You don't have to get into that, but
sure.
You know, what was that like going back into now having to have a conversation with your family of like, wow, I got to work from home now.
Right.
And I know this was a tough time for us, but this is the cards that are being dealt to me. What was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. My wife Daniela's extremely supportive, and so she gets into a mode where she always desires to see me succeed, and she is huge for me in my success, and so I was basically given 3 days of, hey, you can come into the office, but once these 3 days are over, like, you need to be ready to roll, and you're not coming in anymore. And so by the time I got done with that, you know, we're in a small apartment, you know, but she had created this space for me to be able to have my work computer, for me to be able to, you know, have my books and just kind of have a singular space where I can get the work done. So that was really helpful to me, but yeah, it was definitely challenging. It's a familiar feeling that we had that wasn't great. You know, it was more, those 3 years were more of a time of investment in figuring out what we could do, how we could do it, what works for our family, what doesn't. And we came to realize we figured out a lot of what doesn't work for our family. And this started to feel like some of that, you know? And so that was challenging. I also, what's interesting is, you know, I love teaching, and I know that that's kind of like the thing you say. You're a teacher, of course you do. No, like, I really enjoy it. It gives me energy. It motivates me because I really love to do it. And not having my students, not being in the classroom anymore, now was like a certain motivation was removed from my day-to-day, and that was challenging. Like, I miss my students, I miss the classroom. You know, even little things like, I'd been an adjunct for 7 years. This was my first year with an office, and now, like, that was taken from me, and things like that. And so it was definitely a challenge, and we've run into other challenges as time has gone on. You know, we have a 5-year-old son. He just turned 5 yesterday, right? His 5th birthday, stuck at home, no party, no, like, and we did throw a party for him here, but but you know, his cousins, his friends,
Sure.
you know, he's come to expect that from birthdays. He's old enough now that he remembers what his fourth birthday was like, and this wasn't that, you know. And so a day before his birthday, he just started crying in my arms because no one was going to be coming. And so just having to kind of wrestle with that, and allowing him to be sad, because it is something to be sad about, and it is something that's understandable to be sad about. And so that's been tough. And then even things that you would think shouldn't get interrupted, right? Like, we homeschool. So we have a 5-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, and she'll be 3 in July. And so we homeschool our 5-year-old. Homeschooling has been difficult. And you might think, well, but why, right? You're home. But it's like, no, it's because we're home and there's no distinction. Like, it's hard to maintain a certain kind of rhythm when you just know you're going to be home all day, you know?
Right. Wow. I feel like I should have extended this interview.
No.
Oh man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I guess the question that's kind of come to my mind as you're talking is, you know, you worked your tail off, Miguel. I've known you for a few years, and you've been always a hardworking dude. You know, I knew you showing up to PBA. You know, you're tired, but you always came in. You know, and you did. You know, you can see how the teaching and your energy will come out. You know, even when I wasn't in your classes, you know,
Sure.
I can walk by and hear you, and there's just a passion about what you're sharing. You know, even in your apologetics classes and some of the other and outside humanities, same thing. You know, and for you to really get your big break, you know, and again, I'm not here to tell your life story, and I don't know all of it anyway, but
Sure.
you really went out on a limb to become a humanities teacher in a field where a lot of people say it's dying out. You know,
Yes.
like the rock and roll of music, like rock's dying.
Right.
You know, why put that CD out?
Right.
Sure, you know what I am. I guess, you know, MP3 or whatever they're on, MP12. Man, what was it like for you though? You get your big break, a well-earned break, I might say. You get your job, you get your office, you get your space, and then that's all pulled away from you again within 3 days, basically.
Yeah.
But you're also, man, so you're managing your losses, which are significant because you worked your butt off to get there. But now you're also dealing with a 5-year-old who can't have his birthday, a normal, you know, man, let's have your friends run around, you know, go in the pool, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And he's crying and he's upset. And I don't know, maybe your wife's had reactions. Maybe your daughter's had reactions. Man, how are you managing your own personal life and losses and struggles with, well, I still need to be there for my family and my wife and my kids. How are you doing with that?
Yeah. So I would say it is true that all 4 of us at an individual level have had to deal with loss. My wife, so for those who know, the 2 of us know that my wife's the social one. And so for her, you know, she's a stay-at-home mom. She homeschools. We team homeschool because my schedule allows for some of that. And so, but she does the bulk of the homeschooling. And so, for her to still have kind of all those responsibilities, but then not have the parts she enjoys of her every day, you know, certainly challenging for her. And little things, you know, you'd wonder, okay, what does a, you know, 2 almost 3-year-old miss out on? And it's like, well, I'll give you an example. Sunday mornings when we get dressed up and she knows that it's church time, she's saying, why aren't we leaving, right? Like, she's used to going somewhere and she's frustrated that we're staying home. Like, why is it? Because we're still trying to dress up. We're still trying to create certain boundaries within our day to create certain rhythms and to help, you know, and so even she's feeling that loss of like, I'm used to going somewhere. My son was in the middle of a soccer season, right? And so all of that has been, So we were used to going to practice midweek and then a game on Saturday morning, like that. That's been so everyone has experienced some loss, and so I think one of the things that this was helpful. My wife and I sat down and we had an intentional conversation about what was going to be happening. To be honest, and I don't know, this was our first pandemic, so so I think some of it we didn't realize, and quite honestly, I don't know that we knew how long it was going to last. But we did sit down and we were like, from day one, we're going to need to give all kinds of grace. We're going to have to give grace to each other. We're going to have to give grace to the kids, because the reality is that they're going to act in ways that typically we do not accept. And we're going to have to understand, we still need to teach them. We still need to parent them, but we have to give them lots of grace because they're in a tough spot. I get cranky in our situation right now, much more so a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old, having to deal with this, and so understanding that we never had to deal with this at this level at their age, right? So we can only even just imagine what they might be going through right now.
Sure. Wow. Well, kudos to you, man, for sitting down and having that conversation with your wife and really being willing to have, honestly, a crucial conversation. We don't know when this is going to end, but let's be honest. I may get more cranky. The kids are going to act up.
Right.
We got to hold some of our parenting boundaries, but also roll with some grace, because
right.
Dude, this is unprecedented, at least for our generation.
That's right.
Know what I mean?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just got 2 more questions, man, and the last one is kind of a fun one, but
sure.
kind of going back into that, what allowed you to kind of have that insight to really realize, like, wow, I need to sit down and have a conversation with my wife, and we're going to have to reevaluate how we're doing things, because I'll be honest, from just clients and talking to people and friends, family, a lot of people I found have struggled to have that conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to admit there's a new routine. So
Sure.
I hope it goes away.
Yeah.
This thing has lingered for weeks.
Right.
What kind of cued you up and you realize, you know what, we need to tackle this conversation?
Yeah. So for one, because I don't want to take too much credit, I will acknowledge what has proven difficult is to have the ongoing conversation, because you get so tired of the situation that, like, you don't want to constantly, and there's things that need to be revisited, and so I would say that's certainly something that has proven to be difficult for us, because there's times where it's like maybe one of us is up for the conversation, but the other one's just checked out, and it's like, I can't do this anymore, and so it's just frustrating. But we did have that initial one, and I think that initial one was really important and helpful. And I think 2 things led to that. One, as we mentioned, the previous 3 years. So we know what happens to me personally and the way that it affects our family dynamic when I'm having to be home, when I don't have that separation of church and work, or I'm sorry, church and work and home, like family, right? Church and state. Yeah. But no, more like church and not church, work and family. So when we have work and family and those things aren't cleanly separated, we know how it affects me and then how it affects the family dynamic. So that immediately set off some alarms. Hey, we need to talk about this. But 2, I would say that it's something that parents of younger children are typically attuned to, because especially when they're at an age where they're not going to school, or when you're a homeschool family like we are, that, like, when they're having a really bad day, you stop and you immediately think to yourself, when's the last time we did something to break things up? When's the last time we took them out? When's the last time we did something fun, right? And so we're regularly having to ask ourselves those questions anyway. And now going into a season where we knew that was not going to be an option, that immediately led to, okay, well then we need to talk, because this is the way we've typically dealt with some of these situations. We don't have that as an option anymore.
Wow. And again, kudos for y'all having that conversation and continuing it. And thank you again for being so honest. As you're talking, there's things that I haven't even thought about that people are facing, and I do want to end the day with a little bit of a cool question. As we're locked down, the stress levels are up for all of us. It's a total new norm. Routines flipped upside down. Man, what's the comfort food that you've been reaching towards? What's that thing, when people ain't looking, you're opening the refrigerator or the pantry.
That's funny. So interestingly, I had just started, I started keto in February.
Okay.
Right. And so, really helpful, lost about 13, 14 pounds. I just blew it yesterday for my son's birthday, but that helped me in that it helped me remain kind of disciplined in my food choices for a while. But what I will say we've done on occasion, when it's just, we need something, we need to change things up, is I will make a Chick-fil-A run. And I want to give props to Chick-fil-A because all of their employees have masks, they're wearing gloves, and they will bring your food out on a tray so that you're not touching so that you're not exchanging anything in hand. Like, you swipe your own card, they're bringing you your food on a tray. Like, they are taking serious steps towards trying to make sure that everything's kind of on the up and up. So that's been nice. The kids love it. My wife loves it. So we've probably made and I'll go by myself just again to kind of limit the contact and risk of getting the virus. But we've done that, I think, 3 times in the month or month and a half that we've been at this now. So, and that's always been kind of a treat. That's been a treat each time we do it. And it's been really good for us. So. Very
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I might have to head over to Chick-fil-A now. I didn't know they had all that going on.
But now you have me curious. What's your comfort food?
Well, man, I'm an equal opportunity person. I can wander off from pizza rolls to, we have a drought warning, so you can't have any fires. So
yes.
The other day, Andrea showed me how to make s'mores in the toaster oven, which I don't know if that's the best idea, but
yeah.
I don't know. I oscillate between salty stuff and the sweets. And
got it.
Yeah. Depends on the day.
Yeah.
I'm not bashful about making a plate of nachos or a baked.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Is that keto?
Nachos are very versatile, right? Yeah. They can meet a lot of different emotions and a lot of different needs. So
they're flexible in times where I need.
No, but I would say this just kind of as a closing thought before you completely close it out. We mentioned grace earlier. I think we kind of naturally know I need to give grace to others, especially if you find yourself in a home with other people, but I think grace to oneself, I wouldn't want us to close off without at least thinking about that for a second, just because I think we oftentimes can be hardest on ourselves. I know that I can be, and I'm in the midst of a dissertation, right? So I'm in the midst of that, and I saw somebody post on social media how they kind of expect all kinds of people to finish their dissertations because they're stuck at home all day every day, and it's like, man, I don't. Not that's not gonna work for me, like I've got 2 little kids, I have a family, we have a small apartment, like those aren't the conditions that get me going. So I think just realizing that, I've seen people post things like, you know, if you don't acquire one new skill by the time this is over, you've failed or you've lost, you know? And I'm like, you know what? If you can, do it, right? If this is providing you that opportunity, then go for it, right? This is really important. Maximize your time. But if just getting by, right, is all you can do right now, like, it's okay to just get by. It's okay. So, yeah.
No, that's an awesome point. You know, I can get task oriented and, you know, mission focused, but I noticed far too much of that, you know, and, you know, I don't have kids, you know, me and Andrew are married, we don't have kids, man, but we're still trying to organize our business, organize our new home, and just things take so much mental energy that you don't think. And would I like to come up with the latest, greatest business model? And you know, I would love to, and I would spend some time doing that. But shoot, like you're saying, it's I do want to also survive and live to life after this. You know, I'm not setting up my credentials and who I am as a person on what I accomplished during you know the craziest time of our generation thus far. And, you know, my worth and value doesn't come from that. You know, I think that's an awesome point. Man, how can people follow you, Miguel? I know you got a bit of a podcast going, and I know you
so I do my work in the humanities. A lot of that involves thinking about art and philosophy of art and things like that. So I do have a podcast that can be found on any of the of the regular kind of podcast hosts. So it's called The Signature of Man. So the Signature of Man podcast. I have 5 or 6 episodes that have been released on that. People can also find me on social media. I have a professional page on Facebook, Miguel Benitez Jr., and then also LinkedIn and Twitter. My Twitter handle's @mbenitez Jr., and you can find me that way. So yeah, I've pretty much on most of the main platforms. So.
All right, cool, man. Well, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
You have set the bar pretty darn high. I won't tell the other people that are coming up later.
All right, good deal.
But thanks again, man. I appreciate you and your honesty, and me and Andrew, I send our love and to you and Daniela.
Likewise. Thank you.
Well, catch up outside
of
this whole Zoom thing, man.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
All right, you too.